The wisps of steam rising from my coffee mug were a lone beacon of predictability in a world that had become utterly chaotic. It was a small patch of warmth against the pervasive chill that Fallujah had irrevocably imprinted upon my very being. That particular morning, much like many others, I yearned for the simple, unremarkable cadence of suburban existence. Then came the abrupt, insistent rapping at my door, 3 resonant thuds delivered with a flat, forceful palm, far too aggressive for a casual greeting. This was not the sort of summons one answered while barefoot. It was the kind of knock that resurrected the phantom sensation of a shotgun's reassuring weight, propped expectantly by the entryway once more. I eased the door open, peeking through the narrow gap. Not postal workers, not friendly neighbors. 3 men stood on my porch, their figures obscured by matte black tactical vests and heavy-duty boots. Communication devices, clearly imitations, were clipped to their shoulders, a cheap pretense of officialdom. The only missing element was a sign boldly proclaiming, "We are not law enforcement. Please, trust us." The tallest of the trio, his buzz cut sharp and his eyes hidden behind wraparound sunglasses, advanced as if his presence was anticipated. He perused a clipboard with an air of scrutinizing state secrets, not neighborhood gossip. "Mr. Hayes." His voice was utterly devoid of warmth, flat and toneless. "We are conducting a scheduled compliance review pursuant to Homeowners Association Custody Ordinance 7.4. I blinked, the sheer absurdity of the statement striking me before any anger could surface. Custody ordinance. Across the street, near her meticulously manicured prize-winning roses, Karen offered a faint smirk, taking a sip from a stainless steel tumbler. Her gaze, fixed upon us, held a disturbing glint of triumph. It was evident she had anticipated this confrontation. "We have received a behavioral concern regarding minor 714-, the man continued, his eyes drifting past me towards the hallway, and more specifically towards my son Leo's bedroom. I stepped fully onto the porch, allowing the door to swing partially shut behind me, creating a subtle barrier. "You've just employed a considerable number of official-sounding terms," I stated, my voice low and steady, despite the nascent tremor in my hands. "None of them held any actual meaning in the real world. There is no such thing as HOA custody." He flipped a page on his clipboard, completely unfazed. "Refusal to cooperate will be documented. This constitutes the initiation of Phase 2 protocols." Phase 2. Before I could even demand a clarification, they turned with an almost robotic efficiency and retreated to an unmarked black SUV parked further down the street. I watched them depart, the phrase Phase 2 echoing in my mind like a lingering threat. My foot nudged something light on the doormat. A single sheet of paper folded once. I retrieved it. Leo's name, today's date, and stamped across it in stark crimson ink. Phase 2 approved. Then I heard it, the faint creak of floorboards. Leo stood halfway down the staircase, his pajamas rumpled, his eyes wide with a fear that mirrored my own sudden, overwhelming dread. He had overheard enough. And just like that, the fragile semblance of my morning, the carefully constructed normalcy I clung to, shattered into a million pieces. They were no longer just observing. They were actively seeking to take my son. I crumpled the Phase 2 notification in my fist, the thin paper absorbing the sudden, clammy sweat on my palm. Leo's wide, anxious eyes remained fixed on me from the staircase. I forced a calm I did not remotely feel. "It's all right, Leo," I said, my voice attempting a reassuring tone. "Just some HOA nonsense. Go get ready for school." He did not appear convinced, the fear still evident in his gaze as he slowly retreated back upstairs. Olivia met me in the kitchen, her expression a stark reflection of my own mounting dread. "Ethan, what was that custody ordinance?" We had no answers, only a shared, suffocating anxiety that settled over the house like an unwelcome layer of dust. The next escalation arrived with unnerving speed. It wasn't tucked into the mailbox. It was crudely duct-taped to our front door, resembling a quarantine notice. Leo discovered it first, staring at it in silent bewilderment until I carefully peeled it away. Violation, visual disruption, front yard neglect, the transgression read. Leo's bicycle, left on the lawn for perhaps 2 hours after school yesterday, was the alleged crime. Below it, a $75 fine printed in a faint gray ink that sent a chill far deeper than the bold print. Persistent visual disruption may trigger compliance monitoring per Article 4.7c, the notice continued, referencing the same article the enforcer had cited earlier. It became increasingly clear that this was not about a bicycle. Breakfast was a tense affair. Leo picked listlessly at his cereal. Olivia stared blankly at the wall. The silence was thick, heavy with unspoken fears. "I didn't do anything wrong, Dad," Leo finally mumbled, pushing his bowl away. "It wasn't defiance. It was the hurt confusion of a kid being punished for rules he didn't understand, which was suddenly weaponized." "I know you didn't, buddy," I replied, my own appetite completely gone. Just as the silence threatened to solidify into something permanent, Noah Vance burst in, clutching 2 energy drinks and a battered laptop as if they were sacred texts. Noah, a former signals intelligence specialist, now worked as a freelance cybersecurity consultant. He was the sort of friend one kept close when one suspected the world was listening a little too intently. "Okay, don't freak out," he began, powering up the laptop before I could even utter a question. "But you were right to be paranoid. I dug into the HOA's network. It's way deeper than bylaws and bake sales." He spun the laptop around to face me. A folder labeled Project Dove, Willow Glen. Inside a collection of timestamps, photographs, and reports. My house, Leo leaving school, me pacing in the driveway. 32 families flagged in this neighborhood alone, Noah explained, scrolling through the files. Single parents, anyone with a disruptive record, and veterans. Lots of veterans. He clicked on a file. My name, Ethan Hayes. Unstable. Volatility risk. Prior combat exposure. Resistance to mediation. Surveillance authorized. Another click. Leo Hayes, -714A. Stability monitoring required. "They're building cases, Ethan," Olivia whispered, leaning closer, her hand gripping my arm tightly. "Pre-clearance files for what?" "Removal," Noah stated grimly. "How long has this been going on?" I demanded, the blood pounding in my ears. "Months," Noah said, his expression grave. "Karen isn't the architect, but she's definitely feeding the beast." That was it. Olivia attempted to restrain me. "Ethan, you're too angry." But I was already out the door. Karen was meticulously pruning her perfect roses, as if nothing was amiss. "Ethan," she chirped, feigning pleasant surprise. "Lovely morning. Did you see the newsletter? Pickleball is back." "Cut the crap, Karen," I said, stopping directly in front of her. "You're flagging my son and running surveillance on my house." Her smile remained, practiced, and entirely artificial. "I don't flag anyone, Ethan. The system identifies patterns. I simply observe and report when children may be in unsafe conditions. It's my duty." "Unsafe?" I pressed. "Because his dad fought for this country." She paused, her eyes narrowing almost imperceptibly. "You'd be amazed how often that's the overlap." She then reached into her apron pocket. "Oh, almost forgot. This came to my place by mistake." She held out a crisp white envelope. No return address, just a slick, unfamiliar logo. "Safe Start. Family Oversight Division. Figured you'd want it." She leaned in, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "Take a break, Ethan. You seem stressed. Spiraling, even. Leo doesn't need that kind of chaos in his environment, does he?" The calculated cruelty, delivered with a veneer of neighborly concern, struck me harder than any physical blow. This was not merely a power trip. It was deliberate, systemic malice. I left the envelope in her hand and walked away, her saccharine voice echoing behind me. Back at home, the sense of dread intensified. Later that evening, Olivia sat me down, her face pale. "Ethan," she began, her voice trembling slightly. "A man approached me in the parking lot at work today. He didn't threaten me. Not really. He just asked questions about us, about our household stability. He mentioned he worked for a risk assessment firm and casually noted how easy it would be for personnel complaints to affect my job. The circle was tightening. They weren't just coming for Leo through me anymore. They were coming for all of us. Olivia's words about the parking lot encounter hung heavy in the air between us. The subtle threat against her job, against our entire stability, was anything but subtle. It was a clear, undeniable signal. The gloves were off. They weren't merely prodding the bear anymore, they were preparing to enter the den. My carefully banked rage, the controlled burn I had lived with since Fallujah, flared hotter than ever before. A primal, absolute protectiveness surged through me. We checked and rechecked the locks 3 times that night. Sleep was a luxury we could no longer afford. The following evening, the fragile semblance of routine shattered completely. I was helping Olivia with dinner when a sudden, chilling quiet descended upon the house. "Leo," I called out. No answer. A swift search confirmed my growing fear. His room was empty. The back door was slightly ajar, swinging silently in the breeze. Panic, cold and sharp, clawed at my throat. Then I saw it. His phone, left deliberately on the kitchen counter. The screen illuminated, displaying a single stark message. "Meet me behind school. Urgent. Lex." Lex. He didn't know anyone named Lex. It screamed trap. Just as the realization fully hit me, a muffled sound drifted from outside. Brief, choked off, like a startled cry. Training took over. No thought, just movement. Low, fast, utilizing the neighbors' overgrown hedges for cover. The streetlights flickered, casting long, dancing shadows. Then I saw them. The same black SUV, parked near the darkened schoolyard fence, its rear doors open. 2 figures in familiar tactical gear were dragging Leo towards it. He was fighting, kicking, twisting, a silent, desperate struggle. A third man stood as a lookout, a tablet in his hand. I didn't announce myself. I closed the distance like a ghost. The lookout turned, sensing movement far too late. One strike, precise and hard, to the side of his neck. He crumpled without a sound. The man holding Leo's arms turned, startled. I used his momentum, pivoting, slamming him bodily into the side of the SUV. Metal groaned. He gasped, folding awkwardly. Leo wrenched himself free, scrambling back as the second man lunged at me. I swept his legs, dropping him hard onto the asphalt, 3 down in less than 30 seconds. The cold efficiency of it all startled even me. I hauled the first one I'd hit upright, pinning him against the dented vehicle. "Who sent you?" He just groaned, his eyes flicking towards the SUV's dashboard. I followed his gaze. The tablet was still illuminated, displaying a map, a route, and blinking red text. Asset 714. Transfer in progress. Asset, they called my son. An asset. Bile rose in my throat. Across the street, bathed in the sickly yellow glow of a porch light, stood Karen. Her phone held high, recording. A faint, smug smile played on her lips. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. Local police this time. 2 cruisers, lights flashing. "Step away from them," an officer yelled, his hand hovering near his sidearm. I raised my hand slowly. "They tried to take my son." The officers looked from me to a shaken Leo huddled near the fence, to the 3 men groaning or unconscious on the ground. One officer cautiously checked the SUV. He returned moments later, his face pale. "There's a manifest in here, sir. Safe start letterhead. Routes protocols. Says, asset transfer." That, and Leo's tearful confirmation, shifted their suspicion. Karen started towards them, ready to spin her narrative. "He's unstable, officer. Always causing trouble." But Leo cut her off, his voice trembling but clear. She watched them. She knew. The officers exchanged glances. They cuffed the 3 intruders, their expressions hardening. Back inside, the adrenaline drained, leaving only exhaustion and a gnawing dread. I needed answers. I retrieved the tablet the lookout had dropped. Digging past the transfer protocol, I found a password-protected folder. Noah talked me through bypassing it remotely. Inside, the true objective lay bare. Phase 3. Guardian Re-Education, Neutralization Protocol. Subject, Hayes, Ethan. Photos of me, my service record details, psychological notes I didn't recognize. They weren't just trying to take Leo because of me. They were planning to remove me from the equation altogether. The stress, the violence, the cold, clinical text on the screen. It snapped something. Suddenly, I wasn't in my living room. I was back in Fallujah. The air thick with dust and cordite. Warehouse clearing. Intel said clear. It wasn't. Gunfire erupted. Comms guy down, moving fast, targets dropping. Then the scream, high-pitched, terrified. A girl, maybe 9, hands over her ears, tears streaming. No weapon, just caught. She ran towards the side exit, towards our evac perimeter. My hand twitched. Raise weapon, detain! My feet felt rooted. For one paralyzing second I saw Leo's face, same wide, terrified eyes. She ran straight into the crossfire. Unidentified civilian. Regrettable. The guilt, the vow I'd made to never freeze again, to protect at any cost, crashed over me. Later, when the immediate crisis subsided, Olivia found me staring blankly at the wall. You saved him, Ethan, she said softly, touching my arm. I flinched. But, I asked, already knowing the answer. She sighed. But look at him. Leo was curled up on the couch, pretending to sleep, but his small body was rigid. He saw you tonight, not his dad. He saw the soldier. Are you protecting him, or are you teaching him that the only way to be safe is through violence? He's starting to disappear inside himself, Ethan, just like you used to. Her words were quiet, not accusatory, but they struck deep, exposing the raw nerve of my methods. The final blow came via a late-night call from Noah. Ethan, they didn't just have HOA files. They got into the VA system, your therapy sessions, the sealed ones. He sent the screenshots. My own words, spoken in the supposed sanctuary of therapy during my darkest post-deployment days. Fears, vulnerabilities, admissions of struggle, twisted, taken out of context, logged as proof of aggression, potential, and emotional instability. They had weaponized my own healing against me. Sometime after midnight, Leo padded downstairs. He didn't say anything for a long time, just stood watching me watch the dark street outside. Then quietly, You don't have to go to war for me, Dad. I started to protest, but he continued, his young voice filled with an unnerving maturity. But I think maybe you have to anyway. Not just for me anymore. He looked at me then, a flicker of the boy I knew behind the haunted eyes. They won't stop, will they? No, I thought. They wouldn't, and neither would I. The line had been crossed. This wasn't about defense anymore. This was about dismantling them before they dismantled us. The hours after Leo's quiet acknowledgement crawled by. Sleep was impossible. Every creak of the house, every distant car door slam tightened the knot in my gut. They had access to my VA records. My deepest vulnerabilities laid bare and twisted into justification. They knew my past, my triggers, and they had a schedule. Phase 3 wasn't just a plan, it felt like an appointment. I sat in the dark living room, the weight of my old service pistol cleaned and loaded for the first time in years, heavy but necessary, on the coffee table beside me. Olivia dozed fitfully on the couch. Leo curled beside her, seeking comfort neither of us could truly offer. The digital clock on the microwave flipped to 2:58 a.m. At precisely 3 a.m., the night exploded. Not a knock this time, but the splintering crash of the front door bursting inward, followed immediately by the shattering of the kitchen window. Black-clad figures spilled into the house, moving with terrifying speed and coordination, fanning out, flashlights cutting through the darkness. No warnings, no demands. This wasn't an abduction attempt, it was an assault. Instinct slammed into me faster than thought. I kicked the coffee table over, using it as momentary cover, grabbing the pistol. A figure moved towards the stairs, towards Leo and Olivia. I fired twice, center mass. The figure jerked, stumbled back with a grunt, but another was already flanking, coming hard from the ruined kitchen. I dropped, rolling behind the armchair, as drywall exploded where my head had been. He had a knife, glinting in the sporadic flashlight beams. I kicked a dining chair into his path, sending him stumbling. I lunged, tackling him low, crashing through the flimsy entryway table. Glass shattered. He slashed wildly, slicing across my forearm, a hot, sharp pain. I grabbed the heavy base of a broken lamp and brought it down hard across his temple. He went limp. Olivia screamed from the stairwell, pulling a terrified Leo behind her. Then the third one advanced, bigger, calmer, moving like he was cleaning up, not initiating. He didn't rush. He came straight for me, ignoring the downed men. He threw a heavy punch that connected solidly with my ribs, stealing my breath. I staggered back, gasping, countering with a desperate headbutt. We both reeled. As he came at me again, his flashlight momentarily illuminated his chest rig. Laminated, clipped prominently, a small printed photo of Leo, my son. A hunting tag. Something cold and white-hot snapped inside me. The careful control, the discipline, gone, replaced by pure, unadulterated rage. I roared, tackling him with everything I had, driving him backward through the already weakened drywall into the hallway. Plaster rained down. Olivia screamed my name. I didn't hear it. 1 punch, 2, 3 fists, connecting with brutal force. I felt bone give. Then I blinked, realizing he was down, unmoving, and I was still hitting him. I stopped, staring at my bloody, trembling knuckles. Sirens screamed outside. Different this time, more numerous. City police cruisers and an unmarked sedan flooded the street with flashing blue and red. Professionals. They entered cautiously, weapons drawn, taking in the scene, the destroyed living room, the 3 figures on the floor, me standing there, breathing heavily, covered in dust and blood. Olivia held a shaking Leo tightly. "Police, show me your hands," a detective in plain clothes commanded, his voice sharp but controlled. I complied, slowly. "They broke in," I stated, my voice raspy. "They came for my son again." The detective's eyes swept the scene, lingering on the tactical gear of the intruders, then on Leo's terrified face. "You do this yourself?" he asked, gesturing to the downed men. "Yes," I said, meeting his gaze. He reached for his cuffs. "Check his phone," I bit out, nodding towards the device clipped to the third attacker's belt. "Proof." Another officer retrieved it, handing it to the detective. He navigated the menus quickly. Facial recognition, or fingerprint maybe. His expression tightened as he read. He looked up at me, then back at the phone. "Guardian removal scheduled," he read aloud. Disbelief warring with grim understanding. "Phase 3. Active." What the hell is this? "It means they didn't come to scare us," I said. "They came to erase us." "It's true," Leo suddenly cried out, stepping slightly away from Olivia. "They were taking me. He stopped them." Olivia quickly added her confirmation, her voice shaking but firm. The detective looked back at the phone. Scrolling further, he paused. Then, his eyes widening almost imperceptibly, he tapped the screen. A voice filled the tense silence, cold, familiar, chillingly clear. Karen's voice. "Proceed. Keep it clean. He won't fight for long. They all crack eventually." The direct order for this assault. The final piece. The detective stared at the phone, then looked at me, then at the carnage. He slowly lowered the cuffs. "Mr. Hayes," he said, his voice strained. "We have a lot to talk about." The city cops finally cleared out hours later, leaving behind a house scarred by violence and smelling faintly of antiseptic from where the EMTs had worked on the intruders before hauling them away. Olivia held Leo close, the shock slowly giving way to a bone-deep weariness I recognized all too well. In my hand, the attacker's phone felt heavy, not just with its weight, but with the cold, clear recording of Karen's voice, the smoking gun. The police had logged it as evidence, but not before Noah remotely pulled a secure copy for me. Phase 3 had failed because I fought back. Now it was my turn to attack, not with fists, but with truth. The emergency HOA board meeting, called ostensibly to discuss recent security incidents, was packed. Word had spread. Neighbors I hadn't seen in years crammed into the small community center room, a nervous energy buzzing beneath the fluorescent lights. Journalists lined the back wall. At the front table, the board assembled, their faces etched with apprehension, save for Karen. She occupied the center, her composure impeccable, her lipstick flawless. A fragile confidence radiated from her as she rustled papers, as if presiding over a routine Tuesday morning discussion on property upkeep. "Mr. Hayes," she addressed me, her voice laced with a faint sympathy as I approached the lectern. "We hadn't anticipated your presence." I disregarded her salutation, placing the assailant's mobile device upon the stand, positioning it toward the microphone. Then I initiated playback. Not for long. They all falter eventually. Karen's voice, unmistakably hers, reverberated through the astonished stillness. Murmurs rippled through the assembly, heads turned in her direction. The veneer of genial neighbors dissolved, replaced by the wary suspicion of strangers. Her practiced smile faltered. "That recording," she stammered, regaining her composure swiftly, "is demonstrably taken out of context." "Which part, Karen, was out of context?" I interjected, my voice clear and resonant. "The preamble, the directive to keep it discreet, or the segment detailing how your instructions led to 3 armed individuals breaching my residence at precisely 3 in the morning, intending to abduct me and my son?" I then displayed a compact flash drive prepared by Noah overnight. This drive contains irrefutable evidence of Project Dove, of Safe Start's complicity with a shell corporation identified as Unitas. It outlines the systematic surveillance of numerous families represented in this room, their risk assessments, and fabricated reports, many of which were sanctioned or escalated by Miss Karen here, I stated, casting a pointed glance at the man visibly unraveling at the far end of the table, Mr. Finch. Karen rose abruptly, making her final stand. "This is defamation," she declared, gesturing wildly towards me as she appealed to the assembled crowd. "This man," she implored, "has a documented history of psychological instability, of post-traumatic stress disorder. He is projecting his own issues, placing all of us in peril." Before her accusation could fully resonate, I played a second briefer audio segment from the phone, a curt directive. "Expedite Phase 3. Frame it as a community safety concern." At that moment, an elderly gentleman, sporting a veteran's cap, stood. "My daughter received one of their letters," he announced. "It claimed my granddaughter was at risk. She's 6. Another voice chimed in, then another. The dam had broken. Accusations erupted, hands shot up, and phones began recording Karen's disintegrating composure. The vote was swift, almost anticlimactic. Karen was suspended pending a thorough investigation. Daniel Finch mumbled his immediate resignation, his gaze fixed firmly on the floor. An emergency fiscal review was demanded, and Safe Start's funding, channeled through the Homeowners Association, was frozen. I stepped out into the blinding sunlight, the flash drive a palpable weight in my pocket. Olivia met me by the car, her expression a mixture of relief and profound exhaustion. Leo sat silently in the rear, observing me with an unsettling intensity. As I settled into the driver's seat, he inquired softly, "Did she fall, Dad?" I met his gaze in the rearview mirror, pausing for a beat. "No, Leo," I replied. "She was pushed." He simply nodded, a flicker of grim comprehension dawning in his young eyes. Later that evening, my phone signaled an incoming call. "Unknown number," I answered. Silence, followed by a low, synthesized voice devoid of any discernible emotion. Phase 4 was not hers to authorize. Hayes. Finch was inconsequential. We do not tidy up messes like Karen. We enter them. A click, and the line went dead. The icy dread that permeated my being had nothing to do with the cool night air. Karen was a pawn. Finch was disposable, and the true mastermind had just issued a stark warning. This was far from over. It had merely retreated deeper into the shadows. The synthesized voice from the blocked call continued to echo long after the connection was severed. They bury messes. Karen was a mess. Finch, who had crumbled so rapidly during the meeting, was now a liability, not just to the HOA, but to the clandestine entity orchestrating events Unitas. The call served not merely as a threat, but as a chilling clarification. They were purging their ranks, and Finch was undoubtedly next on their list. If I truly sought answers, genuine clarity on the scope of this pervasive nightmare, I needed to locate him before they did. Noah, working remotely with a grim determination, fueled by the injustice inflicted upon my family, tracked Finch's digital trail, a ping from a burner phone, a credit card transaction at a remote motel south of the city. It proved surprisingly easy. Finch was no professional operative, merely a frightened functionary attempting to vanish. Confronting him in the motel parking lot was almost too simple. He appeared gaunt, as if he hadn't slept in days, his eyes darting nervously. He offered no resistance when I instructed him to enter my vehicle. We ended up at an abandoned warehouse Noah utilized occasionally, a place of anonymity and security, devoid of any signal. There, beneath a single bare bulb, Finch sat slumped in a folding chair, avoiding my gaze. "The call last night, Daniel," I began, my voice steady. "The one informing me they bury messes. That wasn't about Karen, was it? It was about potential loose ends like yourself." He flinched. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Don't you?" I leaned forward, placing the compact digital recorder Noah had provided on a dusty crate between us. Its small red light blinked rhythmically. Unitas. Project Dove. Safe start. Behavioral modification. Phase 4. Authorized objective. Neutralization. Does any of that sound familiar? They know what you know, Daniel, or they know what you could say. How long do you think they'll permit you to remain at large? He broke. His shoulders sagged, and a choked sob escaped him. "You don't understand," he whispered, finally meeting my eyes, desperation evident. I thought it was about order, about stability. They presented it as innovation, civic well-being, through predictive analytics. Predictive analytics involving surveillance, psychological manipulation, and the abduction of children, I pressed. "It wasn't supposed to be like this," he insisted. Phase 5. It went beyond mere monitoring. They began to implement modifications at a facility in Phoenix they referred to as the core. They utilized children like Leo. He is designated as proof of transition, file 714. They meticulously document his reactions, his emotional responses under duress, constructing models, blueprints to predict and shape behavior on a grander scale. Phase 6 was the national rollout plan. "And what becomes of the proof once they are finished?" I inquired softly. Finch shuddered, unable to meet my gaze again. They don't release the variables, Hayes. They archive them permanently," his confession then spilled forth. Names, protocols, the chilling detachment of Unitas, his own fear morphing into complicity. I ceased the recording, the gravity of his words settling like a shroud in the frigid air. Back home, I laid bare the entire horrifying tableau for Olivia and Leo. Leo listened intently, his face pale but resolute. When I explained his role as the blueprint, a flicker of anger crossed his features, swiftly replaced by determination. "So everything they did, they were learning from me?" he asked, his voice low. I nodded grimly. He looked from me to Olivia. "Okay," he said, his voice gaining strength. "If I'm their blueprint, then let them see me help erase it." Olivia gripped his hand, a maelstrom of fear and pride in her eyes. The path forward was terrifyingly clear. We couldn't remain hidden. We couldn't wait for them to return. We had to carry the fight to them, dismantle the machine at its very heart. I secured Finch's complete confession, renaming the file Operation Fall Line. We were heading to Phoenix. We were infiltrating the core, and we were going to burn Unitas to the ground. There was no turning back. The flight to Phoenix was a blur of encrypted exchanges with Noah, meticulously reviewing Finch's schematics, battling the gnawing dread of walking into a digital fortress armed with little more than sheer nerve and compromised credentials. Olivia served as our lifeline, patched into secure communications from a nondescript motel room miles away, coordinating our extraction route. Leo, impossibly brave, waited at another remote location, his finger poised over the command that would unleash Operation Fallline upon the world the instant we gave the signal. He was the final domino. We simply had to initiate the first push. The core was not a gleaming skyscraper, but a squat, windowless anomaly nestled within an industrial park, masquerading as a disaster recovery center. Our entry point, as per Finch's intelligence, was a stormwater drainage culvert, 3 feet in width, slick with algae, and emitting the odor of bleach and stagnant water. Cold, cramped, and suffocating, it felt akin to being swallowed whole. 12 feet down, a heavy grate, painstakingly bypassed by Noah, allowed us to drop into the facility's sub-basement beneath the initial layer of surveillance cameras. "Comms check." Olivia's voice crackled softly in my earpiece, a thread of calm in the oppressive silence. "Level 1 clear. Thermal indicates 2 guards patrolling Corridor B, moving away from your position." We moved like phantoms, Noah's fingers dancing across a tablet, deactivating pressure plates and looping short-range camera feeds. We encountered the 2 guards near a junction. There was no time for subtlety. A coordinated takedown ensued. I secured one in a high chokehold, constricting his air supply until he slumped. Noah employed a specialized taser, incapacitating the other instantly and silently. We dragged them into a utility closet, secured them with zip ties, and proceeded. The air hummed with the resonant thrum of powerful machinery. The walls, a sterile white, and the glass panels separating labs and offices were impenetrably black. It felt less like a building and more like the interior of a hard drive. Utilizing Finch's security keycard and retinal scan data, which Noah had preloaded onto a handheld device, we bypassed 2 additional checkpoints. Finally, we reached the heart of the facility, the core server chamber. The door demanded multi-factor authentication, biometrics, voice print, pulse sequence. Finch's credentials granted access. The heavy door hissed open. The chamber was vast, colder than the rest of the facility, dominated by endless rows of black server towers, their blinking red and blue lights reflecting infinitely off the polished floor. It was a mausoleum of stolen data, a digital graveyard preserving the fragmented lives they had meticulously dissected. "Initiate the primary download," I whispered to Noah. "Prioritize Project Dove files and anything linked to Subject 714. He connected, his fingers a blur on his keyboard. "Got it. Uploading to secure relays now. Clock's ticking, Ethan. Estimated 4 minutes to reach minimum threshold for public dissemination." While Noah worked, I followed a hunch derived from Finch's confession regarding emotional conformity modules. An unmarked door off the main chamber unlocked. Inside, my blood ran cold. It wasn't merely servers. In the center of the room, a holographic image flickered. It was Leo. My Leo, appearing perhaps a year older, reacting to simulated scenarios displayed on surrounding screens. A family argument, a schoolyard confrontation, a figure resembling me, shouting. Real-time biometric data streamed alongside the hologram. Heart rate, galvanic skin response, micro-expression analysis. Below it, text scrolled. Adaptive Model 7, Subject 714. Compliance prediction, 93%. They weren't merely observing him. They were digitally dissecting and reconstructing him. I jammed a drive into the local terminal, frantically copying everything. "Ethan, system spike detected," Noah hissed over comms. "They know we're here. 30 seconds. Just then, alarms blared, bathing the server room in strobing red light. Heavy footsteps pounded down the corridor. "Got 80%, Noah yelled, executing a sequence. "Leak protocol initiated. Leo has the trigger, wiping their redundancy buffers now. 45 seconds. 3 guards burst in, armed with tactical shotguns. I engaged, using the server racks for cover, returning fire with the suppressed pistol I carried. 1 down. Noah, exhibiting surprising agility, incapacitated another with a high-voltage discharge device while simultaneously inputting override codes. The third pinned me down. "Olivia, exfil route compromised," I yelled into the comms. "Affirmative," her voice replied. "Heavy team, moving your way. Get out now." Charges set. I slammed 4 small shaped charges onto the main server cores, setting the timer for 30 seconds. Noah, got the sim data? I urged. He nodded, unplugging his gear, holding up the drive I'd given him. Go get that to Olivia's upload link. We sprinted back the way we came, explosions erupting behind us, shaking the very foundations of the building. Concrete dust filled the air, lights flickered and died. We scrambled back up the water shaft, the roar of failing systems and secondary explosions chasing us upwards into the cool Arizona night. We were out. The data was free, but the real storm was just about to break. We didn't stop driving until the Phoenix skyline was a distant memory. The adrenaline slowly receded, leaving behind the hollow ache of exhaustion. We rendezvoused with Olivia and Leo at a prearranged interstate rest stop. Noah, already connected remotely from his own secure location, delivered the confirmation we were all holding our breath for. Leo initiated the trigger sequence flawlessly. It's live, he announced. All of it. Finch's confession, the simulation data, Unitas, internal memos, safe start contracts. It's everywhere. The explosion wasn't physical this time, but digital, and its shockwave impacted the world within hours. Major news networks interrupted broadcasts. Hashtags like the Mammoth Project Dove and Unitas Exposed trended globally. Videos of Finch's confession and, most disturbingly, the holographic simulations of Leo went viral, sparking disbelief and then white-hot outrage. Parents, veterans, civil liberties groups. Suddenly, everyone was discussing the insidious weaponization occurring in suburban neighborhoods. Karen became an instant meme, her condescending boardroom quote plastered over images of her smug visage. The system Unitas had painstakingly constructed in the shadows fractured under the sudden, harsh glare of public scrutiny. Weeks later, back in Willow Creek, the sprinklers still activated at dawn, but the atmosphere felt palpably different. The knowing glances exchanged between neighbors were no longer tinged with suspicion, but with a shared, weary understanding. Karen was gone, facing a barrage of lawsuits and federal investigations, her perfect world systematically dismantled. Finch had simply vanished, leaving no trace, buried, precisely as the voice on the phone had promised. Our home slowly healed, its scars covered but not forgotten. Olivia slept through the night more frequently now. Leo no longer flinched at loud noises. He moved with a quiet confidence that had been absent before. One evening, while watching a news report on the ongoing Unitas investigations, he looked over at me. "Do you think I'll ever be normal, Dad?" he asked. I considered it for a moment. "Do you want to be?" He pondered the question, then shook his head slowly. "No, I want to be ready." And in that moment, I knew the ordeal hadn't broken him. It had forged him. Noah's latest encrypted message confirmed the fight was far from over. Unitas was already restructuring, rebranding, shifting its focus. "Watch the schools next, Ethan," he warned. "Same blueprints, different guys." The voice from the Phase 4 call remained unidentified. The true architects still lurked in the shadows. They attempted to weaponize my training, my trauma against me, twisting my protective instincts into justification for taking my son. They underestimated what happens when soldiers return home. We don't just fight the wars they dispatch us to, we contend with the ones that follow us back. They aim to control the blueprint. Now I safeguard it. Not just Leo's, but anyone they might target next. My war had not concluded overseas. It had merely shifted battlefields.